New figures released by the CSO show the number of tourists visiting Ireland plunged by 30% last month compared with the same month last year. Industry chiefs are saying that Ireland may be heading towards a crisis point. Here's to tell us more is Eoghan Corry, travel and aviation journalist at travelextra.ie. Morning, Eoghan.
Good morning, Anton.
Eoghan, how much of this is access problems as a function of the passenger cap in Dublin Airport, and how much is it a demand issue where people just don't want to come?
Very hard to tell. I mean, the figures, as you say, are not pretty. 30% down year on year, and that's 43% from pre-pandemic. Now, if you square that off with the airport numbers, the Dublin passenger cap has impacted Dublin, but really it was flat. It didn't come down. The number didn't come down by anything that resembles that. So it does look like there's an awful lot of other factors. You're coming in February, Anton. It's off a low base. It's something like a rugby match can make a big difference. The England rugby match, it was a crossover because it was the first day of February. So some of the figures coming in for that. And the French rugby match was also a crossover at the end of March. So you'll get half of those figures. But the other thing is the Dublin airport, those excess flights for rugby were affected by the passenger cap, and most of them went through Belfast. We haven't seen the Belfast airport figures for February yet, but I would expect them to have got about 6% growth out of stuff that was diverted from Dublin. Lots of other things, though, to worry about. And it's not just the CSO figures this week. OPW produced their visitor attraction numbers for all their huge portfolio of attractions this week, and they were down 6% year on year. That counts domestic and inbound. That's bad news. And if a lot of the visitor attractions in Ireland are saying business is not good, things are not good. Sad news this morning that Eagles Flying, that wonderful attraction in Sligo, has closed unexpectedly yesterday. So all the clouds are moving, and they're dark ones.
And do we know what it converts to in monetary amounts, that drop in tourist numbers?
Spend being higher than domestic spend, so it'll impact, the 30% will impact disproportionately on the spend. And when you look into the markets, all of the big markets are all down. Britain is down 25% and 28% since pre-pandemic. America is down by 35% and 88% since pre-pandemic. Germany's down 18% and France is down 29%. But America is the big spender. They saved our last two summers. Britain's been in trouble for 10 years, but America, with the strong strength of the dollar, the new rate routes that have been introduced, in our childhood, Anton, we had 4 direct flights to cities in North America. Now Aer Lingus has 22 on their own. So all of that has been moving in the favour of America, bailing out Irish tourism over the last couple of years. To see that scale of a drop in America is very, very worrying, more worrying than any other market. And of course, as with everything in America, nobody is absolutely sure what's going to happen next.
And to any extent, is that because of the kind of mood music that there is about Europe generally, thanks to the new administration in the States, or is it Irish specific? Do we know why the numbers of US in particular are dropping?
There's certainly there's loads of factors there. Now, Europe hasn't been hit with the sort of move against travel and the move against connectivity that we've seen between America and other markets in both directions. I mean, America's inbound is plunging by about 6% this year, but it's because Canadians and other markets have stopped traveling. So what you're looking at there is probably an uncertainty that's been created by the new administration and the stock market. Americans, as anyone with a cousin in America will know, are far more conscious of the stock market. They follow the ups and downs of the Nasdaq in a way that people in Europe tend not to be, because it's so closely tied to their pensions and investments. So bad news from the stock market might be halting the spend, and all of that you'd expect to impact later in the year. The fact it's happening in February ain't great. Put a context on this. February is about 6 or just over 6% of our overall, consistently of our overall inbound during the year. It's not an important month, but if that is replicated, and it's 6% is replicated to the overall figures, we're going to have a lower inbound visitor than we did in 2021 when COVID was raging.
Well, Adrian Cummins of the Restaurant Association of Ireland has described it as deeply concerning and not where we want to be at all. The responsibility
Absolutely.
to try to address it lies with whom? Tourism Ireland?
It's a complicated one because the figures have changed since pre-pandemic, and Tourism Ireland did respond to some of the very early reports saying this is of concern, but have not been responding, interestingly, to the January figures, which were down 25, and the February one down 30%. There's a big reassessment as to how because the methodology changed with the CSO, and there's a big reassessment as to how reflective the previous figures were of what was going on. That doesn't relate, by the way, to last year. It does relate to pre-pandemic, and so the 30% is a like-for-like figure, whereas comparing with 2019 is a bit apples and oranges. How you address it is a many-headed beast, Anton. Places go out of fashion. When your mummy and daddy were looking at places to go long ago, they would have been, Sitges in Spain would have been a big choice for the Irish. Netuna in Italy would have been a big choice for the Irish outdoor and holiday maker. Nobody goes there now at the risk of sounding like Yogi Bear, and nobody goes like there now. And the places go in and out of fashion very quickly. I mean, for a few years we were riding high on in cinemas with Star Wars and on television with Game of Thrones. Now it tends to be Emily in Paris and White Lotus in Thailand. So it could be that a major seismic shift in the way people perceive Ireland abroad and pick their holidays might be changing. Some of our competitors are growing stronger. Scotland is growing, and they offer the same sort of product. The Balkans has become a sort of a big go-to place in France and Germany. But it's a little bit early in the year to tell. But certainly we've had 2 months that have rattled everybody who's involved in the hospitality and tourism industry in Ireland to the core.
Eoghan, thank you very much. That's Eoghan Corry, travel and aviation journalist at travelextra.ie.